Hey guys, it's been a long time. It's good to be back in one way or another with another State of the Game podcast here. For those of you who are not familiar with this, what I do is I normally bring on a cast of guest speakers to help me analyze the current state of Minion Masters and what can be improved on, what we consider needs to be changed. And this one is going to have to be a YouTube exclusive. Streaming has been something that's impossible at the moment. I'll give more information on that later down the road. But today, in this YouTube exclusive State of the Game, number 3, first one to be officially put on YouTube. And to help me out with that, we have our 1v1 expert, Palm, and our 2v2 expert, DFogoX. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, thank you.
Yep, all fine. Good to be here.
Excellent. Okay. And first topic that we have to cover. Basically, there's been a huge amount of patches that have changed a lot about the game, the pacing of the game, underlying mechanics, the mana costs of so many cards, like priorities as far as how the game works have shifted. And honestly, now that we've had about a month and a half, 2 months of that, I'd love to get your guys' opinions on how you felt those changes have affected the game, and how do you feel about the state of that, of all those changes today, now that you've had some time with it.
Of course, which one of us should go first?
Your choice.
Go for it, Palm.
Alright, well, first of all, I think we should narrow down exactly which changes we're talking about. Most of the things I can see are threefold. First of all, it's mostly about all of the spells having been nerfed in cost, increasing their cost by 1, which makes most of them much less desirable to play into straight up positive trades. Second, we have the fact that air units cannot capture bridges anymore.
That one raised a lot of alarm bells for a lot of people. Personally, I feel like I've gotten used to it at this point. Like, it seems, fair in a way, because like most aerial units are just like small and annoying things that get in the way, and giving them the power to cap bridges just kind of like push them a little bit over the top. Do you folks have any thoughts on that?
I think that not having the air units capture bridges now changes a lot of that, and it also will change how we perceive the utility of those cards. Like maybe before we were used to use cards like Bats or Propeller Scratch, just cheap small bridge grabs the bridges. It's air, so if it's like a ground unit like a statue or a warrior, they easily do their job, give us bridges, and we still get all control. Bats especially, they were super annoying because one moment they are giving you the top bridge, the other moment they are giving the bottom bridge. It's super annoying. Without that out of the way, it does make the game of going about the bridges much more predictable. You know what's happening because no flying unit's gonna show up there and put the bridge neutral or capture it. You just work all around your minions. In that part, I think it clearly makes it much more perceivable and easy to understand how it's working, why it's working like that.
Yeah, you can finally stop worrying about having every big tank like automatically accompanied by a ranged unit escort every time. Like, they had to be there, because if not, it was just propeller strats and they took the bridge and you have to do it all over again. Yeah, definitely. Like, it was kind of an easy way to accomplish a task that was too important to be that easy. Like, now you kind of like have to muscle it a bit more to keep bridge control, or just sort of like open up the map a little bit more. Like, it feels like more significant interactions are happening on other parts of the map, and not just necessarily like everything happening at the 2 towers and the 2 bridges. Like, it feels like it opens up the map a lot more.
I agree that the air units have bit of a different role now. However, I feel like this has made air units as a whole much less desirable to play. All of those small units barely have any room in the game anymore with how easy they are to kill. I feel like the only impactful air units now are the beefy ones like ATG, Amun, Harbinger. There is no point in running bats or scrats anymore.
Yeah, honestly.
My desired change to take care of this would not have been to disallow them to capture bridges. If anything, they should have gone the same way of the nerf on the spells and increase their mana cost.
I
Yeah,
think
what?
the
Because
units,
sorry, I'd like to finish. As of right now, these units have almost no place, and in making air units almost pointless, it indirectly nerfs the value of all ranged units, which were their counter. So it completely shifts the balance into putting everything into ground units.
That is definitely true. We'll be looking at that more in depth in the balance outliers section, but it is true that like a lot of, especially the cheaper ones, are almost gone from play altogether. I can't remember the last time I saw a Dragon Whelp that wasn't summoned by a Dragon Ball. I just no.
Yeah,
I can't
right.
really seem to remember.
exactly. I think that's really the key here. You have those units, those air flying units that to do something, and the ones that were just there to cause some small annoyance. That annoyance was taken out of the equation. I think Bomb really went over the most critical ones. I would add Soul Stealer there, but that's probably about it. In terms of the
Agreed.
flying, yeah. I do think that another very key aspect of the game, and that is, if I would say it was of the most impactful ones, is about pacing. Like more mana generation, more experience generation, like that was very big. And I think a very good aspect here is the direction, the desired direction. The objective, the main objective is to make the games be faster. Lots of people complain, and it was seen before. Lots of games would easily go to 10 minutes, 11 minutes. That was normal. If both players were going for control, games would easily last a lot. So I like the idea of trying to shorten it. I think what we see is that the execution, the way that happened, was not the most effective one because games still take up a lot. Now there's much more focus on control because we also talked about Pom also mentioned the spell changes. It's like it's all about just all the minion interactions. It's very hard for just minions to easily kill your opponent's master towers. Like all this spacing changed and affected a lot of how cards interact in general. For me personally, I would say it was a very key aspect that impacted the game a lot for the last months.
Yeah, I do. I am gonna say that, like you definitely saw a brand of player that you could honestly categorize as spell gamers. The people that see anything on the board and would immediately go to their spells first, almost more than their minions. I feel like, the people that still do that are kind of people that are, just behind the curve, and for the most part, like it has gone a little bit more significantly towards minion interaction, which honestly is a good thing. But then we had the whole snipers debacle. Suddenly spells are a lot less meaningful. A lot of people have taken them out of their decks completely. And then suddenly these units that you can pocket and they control the entire side of the field, suddenly they're a lot more powerful because people don't play spells. They're not worth it. And, more than like disincentivizing spells, it sort of pushed us to very specific ones. And pincer was a huge problem, and then they toned that down, and now we're relying on other things like sunburn, like more advanced players. But flyby, frostbite flyby is another example of that. So like that's another one of those changes that does kind of feel like part of the part of the, what remains in the ashes are cards that just don't see play anymore. Cards like Fireball, cards like Chain Lightning. They just seem so much rarer to see now, and the pool of useful cards did get narrowed down, which it has been a problem in the past, and I definitely be interested and see where they go from here on out to try to expand the card pool a little bit more, because it feels like it is getting narrower and narrower with every patch.
Yeah, I agreed about the fact that it's more minion based than in the previous patches, where each spell both will answer most units and gain value on top of it. Now, as you said, people flocked to the last few remaining spells that still do the same job as they did before the patch. Sunbird, Flyby, Lash of Amun, Pincer for a bit. People are trying to use spells exactly like they used to back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pincer is an interesting case because I feel like it got retooled in a way. It still has plenty of good uses. It still deals with the smaller snipers. It doesn't deal with Stixie, which is honestly fair, because that would be a huge mana,
Massive trade, yeah.
Yeah, huge mana advantage there. But
Speaking of Stixie, I think the best value way to deal with him with spells now is 1 Flyby and 1 Shock Rock. That's 4 mana, kills him.
Mm-hmm. Shock Rock I personally don't really favor anymore, but that might have been just the specific deck I was trying it in. But yeah, that's definitely a card that's, I feel like you really have to be a Shock Rock diehard to be using that card as much as it used to be. Like, it used to be completely universal, but now it's kind of been seen. It's kind of been pretty toned down, even though a lot of people said, it's still going to be played because you play Shock Rock for the stun, not the damage.
Yeah, it used to kill elves, which traded very well. Now it's a control spell.
I mean, I think it was really like some spells before. Like it's the thing. It's necessary to consider: are you using this spell to do damage, or are you using it because of its utility? Like, you use Pincer on a sniper for its damage, you want to kill the sniper, but Pincer always had the utility of fear. I remember when there was a big push coming in, and I would literally try to Pincer the smallest unit that I knew would die, so I would get fear on everything else around. Like, because I wanted not the damage, I wanted the fear. Shock Rock is kind of similar. Like, you can throw it to crossbow dudes before you could also throw it, as you were saying, as elves, as an Aggro Boomer, and well, Boomer as well, of course. But like, it has all those different types where, in those cases, yes, you want the damage, but Shock Rock gives you a timely stun. When you are trading against a unit like Warrior versus Warrior, Golem versus Golem, Shock Rock at the precise timing is going to give you an advantage. You're going versus Mordor, having that early stun is also awesome. Not just for the tombstones, of course, the tombstone is the primary target, but when you are playing with lots of units, and especially when maybe you are mana friends, you're almost close, and you are swarming a lot, just resetting that attack. And same for Ratbo, you can stop Adaka and Ratbo speed, like sharpening about the basic attack, with a Shock Rock. So it's very important to clarify, like, I want to do this now for damage, or I want to do this for utility. Shock Rock was nerfed in the sense of damage, yes. It still has the same utility, and if we consider how now minion-to-minion interactions are much more common, like much more of the focus, having that utility there can be very huge. And same for Pincer, like, you have a Nirvir coming your face, or a Colossus coming your face, and you just Pincer it. Like, you just don't want it to attack. Like, no need for taunt. Maybe for you, we would use like a Divine Warrior, or whatever you need with taunt to get stuff out of the Master's Tower. Now you can literally just Pincer it. Like, I really like the spot where Pincer is right now. It does not kill that many units of its value. The biggest one is probably Bounty Sniper, and that's a huge one, of course, because of the shield, and also Fire Imp, which it also kills. And the fact that now, although like all of these other aspects I was mentioning, like, I feel like much more useful. Like, the other trades, you're probably just gonna have an even trade, which is what we were used to of spells. That's why I think you guys were mentioning how we are trying to still use spells the way they were back then to get the extra value. I guess right now it's just more about utility and trying to support minion pushes, which is probably not something everyone's happy with, and it might not be the most desirable one, but it does feel like it's the state where the game is right now, like more leaning towards utility and supporting pushes, just solving everything with spells.
Yeah, that does seem to be the one remaining use of the pincer. Like, instead of like pincering something small so that the entire push just completely panics, like now you actually choose the biggest thing so that you remove it temporarily from the equation and you can take care of the rest and then come back to that. Like, it functions when people like pile up too many minions at once. Like, usually it's a lot of small units behind something bigger. You get rid of the tank temporarily. It's sort of like Black Hole used to be, in a way, where you would use it to isolate like a certain part of the interactions that were happening, so you could focus on one side, and with the time you were given, you would deal with that and come back to the rest of it. It feels like the one use that Pincer really like consistently has.
Agreed.
I would like one final thought on the spells themselves. I feel like the response to all of the spell nerf is something that the developers caused by themselves by adding two extremely particular spells that had way too many answers to everything. It's Leleil's Vortex and the Resonating Crystal Blast. I feel like those two were way too much they did too much, and as spells they were way too versatile and extremely hard to balance, and that progressively caused the spell nerf.
Crystal especially, I would agree, because it was just like it power crept every other spell so hard. Like the area of effect was huge. It had an added effect if you could cycle it, or back then wildcard it.
It was a better daggerfall. Like lots of times, it was just a better daggerfall at one point.
But not only about spells, but we could also talk about the switch in value towards ground minions overall. I feel like in the previous patch, once they did all of their changes, which was last month, I didn't find the game extremely fun. The game everything was beefy Empyrean units, because those were the best like balance of both health, bridge control, and DPS. I feel like that part of the game wasn't very fun, but as it progressed this month, it went more into low-cost units and controls.
Yeah, I did definitely, in the first month of like the big changes, it definitely did feel like it was just, get the biggest things on board to your opponent's face the quickest. That felt like the most common trend, or like the meta trend, you would say, that the average player would go for. I feel like that is opening up, but I feel like now it's kind of trending obsessively towards minion hordes, and just like bang for your buck cards that do something without too much input from the player, and just tend to get some guaranteed value without the presence of a hard counter.
I think one aspect that we also need to keep in mind is that when you start a new season, and it's a season where the meta is clearly going to change as we like were expecting, the moment there comes a deck, a strategy, a combo that is clearly outperforming the rest, before players try to find out other ones, they are going to do one of two things. They are either going to play that combo or play something that counters it. Like, there's no, this looks very strong, but you know what? I'm going to make something completely new that's even stronger. That does not happen for most players. Like, you want to play and you want to win. You want to get higher, you want to get a reward. You want to win. Like, that's how it all comes about to. Like, most players, you are playing the game and you want to beat certain players. You want to reach a certain level on leaderboard. So if this deck is strong, you use it. Decks are available for everyone on leaderboard. Like, the game does not try to hide it. So you can literally go there, see the top 5, top 10. Yeah, these days, like, and you usually in this case in the beginning of the like when a meta is really very prominent, you just see like most of the cards are the same. You copy that and it will work well. That's why I think when people realize the Empyrean combos were strong on the new meta, especially Prevalorian nerf, like it was just spam that. Of course, like it's what is strong and why think too hard for something that might be stronger. This is working perfectly well. So I think that was, and this is something we see lots of times. This has happened lots of times on Minion Masters when the meta changes and something becomes. Now, a few months after, and we are here. And now, as you were saying, lots of hordes, slow pushes, hordes going for control, or that, all that. So it's like the meta will always lean towards something. When a type of combo starts getting more win rates, other people that were not playing it before will play it now. I think that's very normal. It does go to show that some cards need to be more addressed than others. But I think it's a very key aspect, and that it's something that is really missed on ballots of people. Just because something is outperforming everything else does not mean that there's nothing else that cannot play better. It's just we content ourselves.
We have to find that.
Yeah, exactly. But like,
yeah, when the
something is
trend gets too popular, like it really does feel like you have to choose to go either of those ways. Like counter player, I raise my hand to that. I'm definitely a player that prefers to counter the meta than play it, especially when the meta tends to be very low skill, which tends to happen more often than not. Like we all remember when Legionnaires could get 5 units with the Empyrean buff, and like there's been so many examples of decks that are too easy to play for how well they perform, which is why I guess I've been like sort of formed myself into a counter player. On Steam right now, my name is Just Counter Sniper's Forehead, for anybody who wants to say hi. So yeah, that's definitely my approach towards that, and it really feels like, you sort of like get forced into one of those two camps. Like you're the meta player or you're the anti-meta player, and
I feel like sometimes like this, what you're mentioning makes that some sad things happen, and I have very two good examples of the past. Zealots of the Burning Fist. They were not a weak card. People were not playing them, like they were not the strongest on the meta, but they were not a weak card. They could not be played in every deck, of course. Like you not use them in every single Imperial deck, but they were not a weak card. They were just not super strong. They were not just super buffed as everything else. They got a slight tweak, which feels like a slight tweak, and now they are played in almost every single Imperial deck. Why? Because the card was not in a super set spot. It was just like other things need to be addressed for that card to be able to be played. But they addressed that card before, like Zealots were the focus, and they became overpowered for one season after that. The other example is Arcane Bolt. There was a time where barely anyone was playing it, but it was a great removal. It was working, and then they reduced its cost, and now it's in every single deck. Literally every single deck. In 2v2s, you could literally see both players having Arcane Bolt because it was at a point where it cost like 3-4 mana. It would always be worth it.
I remember Dragon and I playing 2 copies of that in one of our
oh my
tournaments.
God, that was so annoying.
And
That was
I think
so
both
annoying.
teams had
that. That's so
copies
annoying.
of that.
But it's the thing, like cards that are not weak, but are not being played because other cards are stronger, and then those cards get buffed, and now they are the strongest cards, and this affects the meta. Like so, instead of going around the cards that need to be tweaked down, if you watch the cards that are not played and you tweak them up, you are just piling up stuff that should be being turned down. So it's like piling up something buffed over something buffed over something buffed. It's like instead of trying to, oh wait, this is too strong, let's weaken it. No. This is too strong. Okay, let's make something stronger than that. And like, it's just, I feel like we are in a state where this is very noticeable. Like,
yeah,
and
Bettendorf tends
not
to
super healthy, I
really,
think.
they tend to really jump the gun with those kinds of changes. Like cards that are underplayed but not weak, that's happened plenty of times before. Like Vortex was a card that was really good but underplayed, and they buffed it to the uncontrollable state that it was, where it did like 75 damage and like pulled from like 1 or 2 range further than it does now. Like, I feel like they're a little bit too impatient with that aspect of interpreting their data. Like, and we'll get to this in the next section, but I really feel like there has to be like more clear differentiation between their data. If they just lump up every single game played at every single rank in every single region, and basically just lumping all the stats together and drawing conclusions from that as a whole, instead of like maybe partitioning the data into more more digestible sizes and categories, so that you can look at it from a more detailed and more critical perspective and realize like why certain things are underplayed or overplayed, or seeing such a high win rate or things like that. You really need to, like, there's always going to be that need to correctly read the data you're receiving, or if not, you're going to skew the results, and you're going to end up with things like the Arcane Bolt buff and the Lelios Vortex buff that just ended up getting out of hand.
It must be quite hard on their part, though, to properly parse everything and result in something that all the players want, something extreme balanced with no outlying card. I feel like they're doing quite well at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
People will always find those value cards. You were saying earlier that we play something that's brainless, doesn't require much skill. I think like that was the last season, and this season we progressed way more into what is skilled play of control. That's what I'm all about. That's what I've always been about.
They've definitely stepped it up as far as balance. Like, I feel like the main sin was being like a little too tone deaf, like not really taking community opinion into account. They obviously got their community manager a couple of months ago, so that basically that workflow has gotten a little bit more streamlined, and now they seem to be like taking that more into account and like factoring in more variables than they did before. So they're definitely going in the right direction. I will give them that. It's been it's been some growing pains because they've done those changes over a very short period of time, and honestly, a lot of people have had problems adapting to that, and either quit the game entirely, or they just try to bang their heads into the wall and keep playing the things they've always played to less and less satisfying results. But there they are. Point being, I think it's going in the right direction, and I think there's definitely things to look forward to now. You have my attention, developers. What's next?
And I mean, I think we all together are a community, so it's like when we come together, when we discuss this, when we talk with one another, when we try to clear this out. And I think it's very important to be aware, like, no one is superhuman. Like, everyone wants the game to be better. Like, we might disagree of what makes the game better, but everyone wants to enjoy it the most. Like, it makes no sense otherwise, right? The developers want to make it so that the game is more enjoyable to the players. The players want to enjoy the game as much as they can. So it makes sense. Like, okay, fine, we are disagreeing on what is happening. We are disagreeing on the changes, but I think the direction is always to have fun. And I do think trying to make the game go faster, trying to make so that more people can play the game is a good direction. Some things will be missed, yes. I personally will miss a lot those plays where someone would throw fireball and then and then like someone bannermans as soon as the fireball comes out, but someone shock rocks it, so now the fireball is gonna hit, so now you black hole. All these spells were very flashy, and that was awesome because like you needed to react in like 0.5 seconds, like in those casts delayed, like, okay, fireball is coming, bannerman, then shock rock, then black hole, then something else, all that chained together, and it was awesome. Like, it was spectacular to watching all of that thing and like just trying to understand what the hell just happened here. How did that die? What happened? How did it happen? It was insane. So yes, I will miss a bit of that. I don't think right now the game is in a spot where we can see spells be as flashy and affecting the game as much. I still think we are in a spot where insane plays will happen. Like I've seen Frost Feathers fly by being played and being completely blocked by Sunburn. Like both very played, right? You block it with Sunburn, or
I
like
love those interactions.
that is awesome.
Counterable spells.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like doing the same way the King Puff swap the bridge. Like if you swap those owls, they get stunned, and when the Frostfire flyby gets stunned, it just cancels itself out. So there's lots of cool interaction that are still to explore that we can still make use of, and that is still there. Like maybe not as in such a direct way as we were expecting, but lots of cool things can still happen, and it's all up to us, to the players, to find them. Like they are still there. It's just finding new ones outside of what we were expecting, or outside of what we were used to. That's definitely amazing.
Yeah, and I think that was honestly like that kind of sums up like one of the like underlying big problems when they started printing like a new removal spell every season. Like spells from this point on, it really feels like they need to be less straightforward. Like don't just use it with the formula of okay, it's a spell with this big of an area and this much damage and it costs this much. Like we need to go beyond that. We need to have spells that do more creative things. You know, things like flyby, things like Vortex. Like I personally love Vortex all the way since it came out, and it was because like it influenced minion interactions in so many different ways. Like it felt like the spiritual successor to Black Hole. Once Black Hole lost like I don't know how many uses, you know, they removed the like in
It's
general
just
a lot
because
of
Black
things
Hole
about
was
it, but
shorter, so now you could not shut a whole magma storm with Black Hole. Like that was a very big one.
yeah. But the
Well, I
main thing
think
being, I just want them to be less straightforward. Like more, give them more creative uses.
I think the idea is that you don't want spells to be over and done. You want the opponent to have an answer. Just like minions, they are allowed to interact with the minions. Whereas spells, if you don't have a black hole burner man, you have zero interaction with it. And stuff like flyby, as you said, as we mentioned earlier, that is interactive with the opponent. The opponent can respond to that. I think that's the kind of spells that are enjoyable by by both parties.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
both people have
Lash
both.
of Amun is the same. It's a summon spell.
Both of them have a say in what happens next. Like
Exactly.
it's not necessarily just one thing happens, then this counters it, and that's it. No, there's ways around it. You know, things like, for example, Searing Light, Valorian's perk 2 removal spell. Like there are ways around it. It's extremely powerful. Like you can kill a Harbinger for 2 mana if you want, but then they just play a warrior into that entire AoE, and that Harbinger's probably not going to die. That spells like that do have some significant counterplay that you just have to be ready for. Wheel of Doom is another one. It's really efficient. It's 300 damage for 4 mana, but if you can preempt it and put something with more than that HP in the way, then suddenly, that interaction didn't just straightforward remove something.
That's a good point. Those are good examples.
But yeah, really just like I've mentioned it before, I mentioned it in the previous state of the game as well. Like a lot of changes have been done for the sake of this mobile edition of the game. Like they want the mobile release. Another reason why they accelerated the pace of the game is because they want it to be playable on mobile. They want people on their lunch break or on the toilet or on the bus on their way to work to be able to squeeze in a couple of games, and then they put their phone down and go on with their lives. Another one of the things that really seemed to be like all too common was that they were focusing balance efforts on more on cards that had like high skill ceilings, like cards that were too powerful but had a high skill ceiling were a lot more probable to be nerfed than cards with higher power levels but low skill ceilings. Why? Because it's a lot easier to do low skill stuff on a small touchpad on a small screen. But so a lot of things felt like they were being sacrificed for the mobile version, and my suggestion to that was, well, okay, reduce the mechanical requirements of the game, but then if you're going to do that, like, skill expression has to be transferred somewhere else. And my idea was, pull it away from like StarCraft and all of these like high APM super mechanical heavy games. Pull it away from like StarCraft, League of Legends, Dota, and all that, and move it more towards chess. Like, make it so that you can do something with like a simple gesture, simple mechanics, but give it creative ways to be thrown out, like something that's easy in execution but has a lot of variables or a lot of uses. Basically, it's a little tiresome, but easy to learn, hard to master. Like, it really does seem like the best way to design your games these days. And even though a lot of games like preach that they do this, like, not a lot of them actually do it in practice. And like, I'd really like to see that come into Minion Masters a little bit more.
I feel like that applies to the game extremely well. It's very easy to plot down units, but mastering their positioning and the timing is what it's all about.
Mastering aggro ranges, like just the general manipulations you can do, like even like weight classes as far as bridge interactions, like what pushes what back onto the bridge, like that's still a thing. You can still look into those things.
Subject though.
Yeah,
like
it's a little
weight interactions without any weight stat on a card is really something.
Yeah,
like,
I would like to see that. Yeah. I've been meaning to make a list of all the weights.
Like, if they really do want to make that part of the game, which it already is, right? We already use the displacement of cards to push it when on the bridge as something. So if that is to be part of the game, it would be cool to have that stat to know. If I push this into that, what's going to move? I think that's like a soft subject, and it's like, I don't feel like there's a super overall agreement in the community, and I don't even feel like there's a direction of how that should go. Lots of people still complain and mention how
it's a niche subject.
It was better. So
it's a very niche subject to the point where not many people even know about it.
I don't think there's supposed to be an answer to this one. It's kind of like more of a hard topic to clarify and to really, because it's the thing, it was never something we could easily explore, understand. Like range, we know. Yeah, this card is gonna beat that card. Oh wait, but if that card has higher range due to marksmanship, then it is gonna win. Like, that's feasible. But like, what's gonna push what into the bridge or into somewhere else, and now it's gonna be in range or outside of range. We see lots of those interactions. Like, you have a unit attacking a backline, and then just out of their range, and then your opponents play a tank, and that tank displaces the backline further. So now it's outside the range of your unit. So now your unit is attacking the tank, and you're like, why? Like, it can be very frustrating. So
yeah, aggro range for melee minions is another one of those hidden stats that I wouldn't mind seeing. Like, with a ranged unit, like, it's obvious, like, it'll attack anything within its range. But melee units, like, sure, they'll attack something that's right next to it, but when do they start moving towards that other unit? So aggro range is another one of those.
You learn
it's something you learn because it's not explicitly mentioned in the game.
To be fair, not even all melee units have the same range. Like, Shen and Stun Lancers have a higher like reach than other units. Like, Stun Lancers basically attack the same as a Crystal Sentry without marksmanship, and one is ranged, the other is melee. So where's the range? That describes the type of the attack. Where's the range? Or if you don't like to call it range, like the reach. There are lots of these hidden stats that, yes, it would be good for us to know. But I also do feel that having all of that laid out
Confuses
would be an
people.
insane overload of information. Like, imagine new players coming into the game, they just want to open a car and see how much health it has, how much damage it has. They also notice the speed, that's somewhat noticeable. And now compare seeing 3-4 stats to watching there and seeing like 9-8 stats. It's like, wow, what is all this? Like, that's too much. Do I need to factor all of these? Because when you start the game, you don't realize you will need to factor all of these. And most of those, you will just learn them while you play. Like, it's games do need this balance between the information you give to the players and the information the players learn themselves. So it's a balance. It's like not saying we have the perfect balance, just saying like
Yeah,
it's a balance, and
wouldn't mind
sometimes
a wouldn't mind a
it's not
Wikipedia
all.
document clearing up those obscure stats though. Like if you
It's
don't
so,
want to include
so
it
hard
in
to
the
calculate.
game, like maybe you could include it somewhere, like outside the game if you need to. But like, I would be interested in seeing it readily available. Like for those players that want to go that level deeper, make it something optional, but available. Okay, we've been going on for a while. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to this part about recent changes and how they've affected? Or do you think we're all set?
I think we're,
We've covered what I
yeah.
was meaning to say.
The game changed a lot recently. I think that's why there was
A
so much
lot,
to
yeah. There was
go on about.
a lot to
And
unpack,
yeah,
yeah.
we're not even going on about Masters, but
There will be time for that as well. Okay. Hey guys, Red Shade here. I know that I haven't really been streaming lately at all, and I wanted to give you guys a little insight into that. Basically, long story short, my GPU actually went out. Yeah, one of its memory units just completely collapsed. It was giving me a lot of restart errors and like actually visible problems with my display. So I've had to go ahead and get a new one. For those of you who aren't really looking at the market right now, that does mean really, really hefty investment. Most of them are like double the price, if not more. So that's definitely something that I've been saving up for. The way to help me with that, though, there's actually plenty of ways here. If you guys go over to my link tree, I'll be sure to add the link below. You guys can find all sorts of useful links here. You can find direct access to that Twitch channel, social media, Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and also a very neat integration here straight to the merch store. As you see there, over 290 products, huge assortment. You guys can definitely take a look at that. Best bang for your buck way for you guys to support my content and get some high quality merch in return. It's not going to be just that straight up throwing money at me. You're gonna get something pretty sweet back, and I'm always looking for new designs, new products, new things to add and offer you guys. And there's even the option to support directly if you guys were so inclined, but the big ones are definitely gonna be the Twitch integration and the merch store, so be sure to check that out. Definitely give it a look. I'll promise you it's worth your time. And that's probably going to be it for now. Stay awesome, guys, and I hope to see you next time.